Sometimes artist residency can be a little lonely, right? Because I'm away from my family, and my loved ones, and my dogs and cats, and my girlfriend and my kids. But everybody's here, right? So I felt a little like part of something else that's made me content. It's really nice. Even the dog.
Yeah.
I highly recommend.
Yeah, you became part of our family actually.
And that's amazing. That's something I've not experienced at other residency places before.
The reason behind this discussion is basically to give a kind of an idea of our the other participants, other residents who wants to apply for a residency in Studio Goppo. So it's a kind of an means the discussion is because of that. The objective of the discussion is this. So just to give an idea of pros and cons, what are the areas are beneficial over here, how an artist can imagine a project proposal being here, what are the possibilities, what this space can offer, and how an artist who doesn't know anything about this space can come and what he can expect or she can expect.
So you probably remember some of my emails like from a year ago, and I was like, well, I'd like to shoot large format film, and my method was learned in an industrial context. Like I was a lab technician at Ford Motor Company, and I learned how to process huge quantities of film simultaneously in a very efficient manner, right? So that's the mindset I'm coming from, right? And the training I have. So when I think about shooting even large format film, which is traditionally a very slow, methodical way of approaching photography, I'm really quick at that, and I can generate a huge number of images. Good ones. I'm not even saying there's any kind of compromise in quality, but I know how to work like a commercial photographer, right? Where time is money. And so I'm emailing Arpan, and surprised to find out that there's not like 3.5 gallon deep tanks to process my film 40 at a time, right? Because that's what I'm used to doing. And so I have to adjust my, thinking, how am I going to approach the medium in a different way? And what I ended up doing was the absolute slowest method of photography ever invented. It might be beneficial for a potential applicant to think about not doing things the way they're used to, right? Like be open to suggestion and the facilities that are here, because it's going to shape the type of project that you can do. And at first it seems like a limitation, but what happens is that maybe this is a classic philosophy or whatever, but out of physical limitations and the ways that we do things, that generates creativity. So like, it's like water pressure, right? So if you have a big river, it's flowing very lazy. And when you narrow the channel and you only have certain potentials, all of a sudden the creativity becomes much deeper and more intense. And I think that's what happened to me, and that was a surprise, right? I didn't expect to be working in this way, and I'm really glad that it happened, because I learned a huge amount, like in a pretty short amount of time. What seemed like a long time, right? Because I'm not used to working in that way, where it takes me 2 hours to develop one negative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like my mind would have exploded if I knew I was going to come here and do that. And now I'm just like, wow. In a month though, you have the time to actually generate a really serious body of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And each image then takes on a much greater significance.
It gives a kind of an visuals of how you have approached towards it, and what you have thought of earlier, and then what you got.
So it was a big change, in my mindset.
Absolutely.
And so part of that is a time thing, and I'm speaking about historical time, right? Because beyond our lived experience, there's history. And so the photographers in, the 1840s, these are the guys that invented photography, right? They lived in a century where life was taken at a much more leisurely pace, right? Things took longer, right? We would walk or ride a horse, right? You didn't have a motorcycle or a car.
Yeah.
And so photography was also a lot slower, and so I kind of had to change the way I think about things and now operate on this sort of pace of the 19th century. And it's been really healthy for me. Like, I'm usually in too much of a hurry, as you noticed, right?
Yeah.
So when you're making calotypes, your hurry is pointless, right?
Yeah.
Because
just slow it down.
the chemicals have their own pace, right?
Yeah.
They're going to operate on a physical scale that has to do with how long it takes to create that silver to build up. And that's got to do with the chemistry, and that's a very physical process. And that brings you back to the way things worked in the 19th century. We didn't have software, right? We had things that happened in a physical manner.
So,
I think the experience that you have here, you explain it in a way I was curious how you came to know about Studio Goppo. You traveled so far from your place and to this part the world, so yeah.
My father was from West Bengal, and so I have a particular fascination with this part of India, more so than other parts. And then there's this parallel development in my creative work that had to do with going back in time. Because the one thing that fascinates me the most about photography is its function as a time machine, right? I grew up reading science fiction, H.G. Wells, from actually the same time period that photography was invented, right? And the book that stuck in my mind the most was the time machine, that you could go back and forth in time, and we weren't stuck to this like miserable linear experience of a human lifetime, or we had the freedom to travel not only in space but in time. And so photography has always been the closest thing I could get to that, right? So I was like, okay, let's see what happens if we dial it back a couple of 100 years. And so I got interested in 19th century processes. There's a lot of other reasons for that too, right? Like I have the very anti-corporate agenda. That's my political orientation. Like I feel like we should have the sort of potential to create things with our own hands, right? Without having to depend on Kodak and Epson and Fuji and Sony. We can't, as an individual, understand that technology. I mean, you have to have thousands of engineers and software coders and so forth. So to go back to a simpler time, in the 1840s and 50s and 30s, that people could understand the entire process, right? So I wanted to figure that out. So that converged with my interest in India, and then a Google search shows up. Studio Goppo in Arpan is like the only guy in town, right? Like you are absolutely fascinated with the same issues,
Yeah.
right? And you have a lot of those similar motivations,
Yeah.
I think. And you're located in West Bengal, right? And also like the absolute sort of spiritual center of Bengali culture because of, Tagore,
Yeah.
who was a huge hero of my father. So it all sort of converged. All those lines came here. So that's why I'm here, right?
One area, I'm a little curious about it because we are running this residency program since 2019.
19.
But then you're the second resident because of COVID. There were no applicants, and there were applicants, but it was
We
not
were unable
possible.
to accommodate them.
Sure, yeah.
But eventually, the whole idea of residency, we do not have a huge lot of experience of conducting residency because it is not only applying a residency is a kind of form, but it is also very important that which we are realizing that how to accommodate an artist and how to facilitate an artist so that in a short period of time a body of work can come up with. And as we are very specific to the area of photosensitivity and
Right.
light and material and all these history of photography, these are the very specific areas. So I believe that this is a very rare residency which offer residencies on history of photography. But eventually there are other places which offer multiple other creative processes as part of their residency program. And while I was going through your CV, I can see that you have been there in multiple other residencies.
Yeah.
You had a very strong
Experience.
experience of being a residency artist in different parts of the world. So if you can give us a kind of a comparative note, and if you can advise us on the area where we can improve, or the area which we can think that this is a kind of a potential space for us, these are the possibilities which we have.
Sure. Well, I guess the first part is maybe follow on what I was just saying, right? That you will find people whose interests converge in what you're doing here, and it'll be a natural click, and you'll know who that person is. The facilities offered here, they're not grand and complicated, but they're perfect. Actually, it's a very efficient space to make work. That's very comfortable and it's aesthetically beautiful. I mean, one of the things that drives me crazy about darkroom work is that you're shut in a little box, right?
Yeah.
With no light, and it quite frankly can be a bit depressing, right? But when we come out of the darkroom and it's dark now, so whoever's watching this video cannot see this beautiful forest outside of these floor-to-ceiling windows. It's inspiring. Like the sort of like proximity to nature makes me really happy, and that's just me. I mean, I need that in my life, right? But that's always been a sacrifice that I have to give up when I'm doing photographic darkroom work. Usually you're in some dark, nasty basement, that smells kind of weird, and there's no light whatsoever. It's just harsh fluorescent, And here I can come out and just be bathed in this gorgeous filtered sunlight. I mean, it's kind of monastic, right? It's very simple, but it's exactly what you need to get yourself going and take care of your body, so you can come directly downstairs and work. Yeah, it's kind of perfect, actually.
The support system of Manoj, Himadri devoting their times.
That's also been fantastic. I have to give a big thank you. I'm really grateful for Manoj's time and Himadri and everybody that's coming and going, because there's like a whole network of people here, because it's usually a larger community of artists, but everybody's transient, right? We're all sort of, just there for 2 weeks or a month or whatever. And you get less of a sense of community that way. And this has been really nice.
And your experience about the exhibition? You are satisfied with the last 2 days?
What the final?
Yeah, and everybody came, right? Like all these people from the town, and there was even people coming from Calcutta. The guy today from Bangalore is like great. Like, so I feel like you've got enough reach, right, through your network that you know, people know about this, that it makes it worthwhile. I feel like I made some connections. You left it open-ended enough that I felt like I had scope to, you know, write,
Improvise
what I needed to do. But it wasn't so... Actually, I really liked it. I thought it was an intelligent way of kind of sorting through the people that... Because you don't want just anybody to come here with no plan whatsoever. And they might just kind of have no idea. You know, this seems like a focused enough situation where it's not 20 people coming.
Right.
It's somebody who needs to have their own agenda and be somewhat independent in the way they're going to operate, right? And that's quite unusual and different than other residency programs that I've been to. So the essay writing part makes a lot of sense, that you know, you can decide if someone's going to be appropriate for that situation or not, right? Because if you can figure out how to write a proposal and make a coherent argument for what you hope to accomplish, chances are you're gonna do something, right? It might, like in my case, it changed a lot from what I thought I might do, but I still had that mindset that I was going to produce a pretty focused body of work and be self-motivated about it.
No, we do expect that always the proposal, whatever the artist is proposing, will be there. He has to do the same thing, it's not there. There is enough scope to evolve, and then you cannot work on preconceived ideas. But then preconceived ideas or a proposal always give a kind of direction. It helps to understand the artist. And we are here not to judge, but to understand and support, whether we'll be able to help that artist or we'll be able to help generate a kind of an a very comfortable space for an artist to grow. That's the idea. And also simultaneously, as an artist, we grow. This is an artist-run organization, so simultaneously
we also learn from people who come in. So
it grows both the ways, actually.
Yeah, it's really kind of a great idea. I didn't logically expect things to be like Tagore's like ideas, but I was sort of dreaming about more of that vibe, I guess. But this is 2022 and there's like 1.5 billion people in India, so like I don't know what I'm thinking here. But yeah, I mean, you know, Bolpur is like a typical Indian town, right? And it's got all the dust and the tractors and the trucks and whatnot. But it's actually quite amazing because, you know, within 5 kilometers you are in little villages and rice paddies, and so it's still got that taste of you know, a very traditional agrarian lifestyle. And honestly, I never thought I'd experienced something like that right now, right? I thought that was gone, and it's been really quite magical and that's kind of what, you know, that inspired this work, you know, coming from California and watching the goats and the ducks and everything just wander around, and it's